Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit today about knowing when to stop. This is something that I've struggled with a lot over the past 6 to 7 years. It's something I'm struggling with right now. And what I mean by knowing when to stop is when pursuing something, when do you know if eventually it's time to just cut your losses or keep going? It can be really hard to tell sometimes. You might have I'm speaking from experience here. I've had a lot of doubts. For instance, right now, many of you may know that I've been doing this sort of AI business on the side, or at least trying to, for the past, I would say, 2 months. And I've done it before, or attempted to maybe 4 or 5 months ago, 6 months ago at this stage. Right now, I've been going at it for 2 months, and I've gotten one client, and it was a 2 hour consultation call. Since then, nothing, and I'm down now like $1,800. Also, I've been facing the desire to quit pretty much the whole way through. Early on, not so much, but 3, 4 weeks in, the desire to quit was pretty strong. I think it was 3 weeks was when I really felt like that I was fighting the quitting demon, I called it. Then every week, then on, just different flavors of wanting to quit, to the point where recently I've just been slowing down instead of quitting. I've just been doing less. So I've been doing less output, just doing less, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. Attempting to play the tortoise, not the hare, is how I'd phrase it. I've been trying this because I have tried so many things, or I've considered so many things since college. I mentioned it, I think, in my returning to YouTube video. I think since I quit my basketball team in my senior year of high school, middle of the season, ever since then, I've kind of been unsure of my next steps. I joined college reluctantly, though I didn't really have anything else that I wanted to do, so fair enough. The first thing I joined in was for, I think it was business. That's a pretty typical major to join school for. Then I switched to marine biology, though I found it just, and this is where I get confused. I'm not sure if these are excuses or just truths. At the time, I found it too scientific. I wasn't interested in like the science and all the elements and all the chemical reactions. I was interested in the animals. That was the reasoning I gave myself. Fun fact, I actually ended up graduating with a minor in marine science because I had so many credits for my first semester, I think, trying to do marine bio. But yeah, I also even considered joining the military. I think for a time I considered switching to the acting school with no acting experience whatsoever. So that happened all throughout school. I stuck with IT eventually, not because I necessarily liked IT, but because I just figured IT is applicable to any field. And the major for IT at my school was only 40 credits. It wasn't even a science major. Like, it wasn't a Bachelor of Science. It was a Bachelor of Arts, a basic IT degree. I just did it for ease, and I was tired of looking and didn't know what else to do. Now it's 5 years later, and I'm still pretty much in the same place where I don't really know what to do. And I often find myself slipping back into the desire to do something simple. Like today, this is kind of funny, but I was just thinking, man, I just want to do something so simple. Maybe I just drive a dump truck or something. And fair play, maybe that is actually the move. And just me trying all these different things, even if I stick with something, that might not be for me right now. Maybe the move is to do something very simple, like working at a coffee shop or driving a dump truck or driving an Uber for a certain period of time. I'm not going to completely scratch that from possibility. Obviously, it's just not an ideal career move, either of those things. They don't really have much leverage. You could argue I could get my own dump truck and start a company, and yeah, maybe, but I've also had desire to, for instance, start this AI business. There's been desire. There's been desire to do everything that I've tried to some degree until I reach a certain point where I don't want to for some reason anymore. This time with the AI, I've reached that point maybe 10 to 15 times, maybe more on different occasions, to the point where I think I would have quit, but I haven't quit for many reasons. One, I'm on a retreat right now that doesn't let me fall back to entertainment or play video games. I can't escape as easily. I can stop and take a break, but I can't dump my mind into a distraction. Other reasons are I've put a lot of money into this. I mean, 2000 is not a lot of money in the big scheme of things, but for someone who's not really saving a lot of money and not making a lot of money to begin with, yeah, that does add up. It does add up, and there is a sort of, I wouldn't say stressor, but just a discomfort and to keep doing that. I'm in an online community where everyone is kind of pushing each other to keep going. So all these things, and it's just, I can feel the potential for it, but I just don't see it, and I'm struggling. And yeah, all this stuff, it's hard for me to really tell if it's excuses or if it's actually just not a good fit for me. That's a very difficult thing for me to tell, especially because I've had a pattern of not sticking with things for a very long time. The last time I remember sticking with something and enjoying it is I was playing in this Gary's Mod Clone Wars RP server in 2021, and I was jumping through the ranks of this like regiment. Yeah, I'm dog sitting right now, so he's a bit of a barker when somebody comes to the door, so apologies, but we'll see if we can work through that. Yeah, so I was playing this, it was during COVID. I didn't really have any in-person friends that I was in touch with, so I just joined this server one night, and I just fell in love. I really had a lot of fun talking to people playing this game. I remember having a lot of difficulty even then rising through the ranks. There were certain ranks which required certain activities that I just wasn't wanting to do. I wasn't wanting to put in that type of effort. And there were many times I think I considered quitting. And what did I do? I don't even remember. I kind of just kept going. I kept going until I got to this point where I realized I don't really care anymore. I kind of broke through that internal boundary where I was like, you know what? I'm confident in who I am. And even if I don't get promoted to the next rank, I'm just going to enjoy my time here. And that was always inevitably the threshold that I broke through, before which I was then promoted to the next rank. And eventually I reached this rank, which I really enjoyed. It was more administrative, more of like an overlooking rank that suited my skills and my abilities and just my idea of what was fun. So that could be the same case here, and everything else that I didn't continue pursuing. Maybe they all have that sort of phase where it's difficult for a long time, and then you kind of get more relaxed, and then all of a sudden you get some wins. That's possible, and I'm kind of banking on that with what I'm doing now. I have noticed that I've become more relaxed, but that's also because I've just decided to literally not do as much and not push so hard. Maybe that's a good thing, but maybe pushing is what is needed. So I don't know. The other difficulty is in a game, there's not a risk to keep going. I'm doing this business right now and I'm spending money to keep going. So there's that sort of challenge. Everything else that I've tried, similar situation. That's just a background of my thought process, because I've been thinking about this I've been thinking about quitting this AI business for ever since I've started 2 months ago. The past, I want to say half a week or so, I've really been thinking, okay, well, where do I actually determine if I want to stop? That air conditioner is getting quite loud. I'm going to turn that off real quick. So yeah. And I'm not just talking in regard to the thing that I'm doing now specifically, but also in general for everything that I do from here on out. Where do I decide to stop? Where do I decide to cut my losses? There's a few things that I want to note because I don't have a clear answer, but I do have a sense of what I don't want to do. What I've noticed every single time that I've given up on something, most times, I don't want to say every time, but a lot of the time, there has been a sort of mental excuse. Last time that I stopped trying the AI business, for instance, in October, it got to this point where I wasn't seeing results. I wasn't really putting in a strategic effort, but I was putting in effort. I wasn't getting results. And when I wasn't getting results, I was getting frustrated. And all of a sudden, I start thinking, I don't even like this. I don't even care about it. I don't even want the future that this could give me. And I'm getting all those thoughts now too, to varying degrees. But at the very beginning of this journey, before I even started trying to do this, all of those reasons are reasons I tried to join the AI business community in the first place. I figured I would like the life it would give me, a remote life where I could work from my computer. I figured I liked AI because I like organizing systems and making systems more efficient. But now I'm at this stage where difficulty comes in, and literally all of those things that I thought I wanted, my mind is telling me that I don't want anymore. Logically, it doesn't actually make sense, even though it seems like it does right now. So this is a pattern that, again, I've run into pretty much everything that I've tried so far, and I have a really hard time trusting my thoughts about that anymore, and just trusting my thoughts in general. Because I ended up quitting in October, and I came back because of all those things that I thought I'd quit for, I actually wanted. So yeah, right now I'm kind of in that state where I'm really aware of the same thought patterns happening in my mind. And I just, as uncomfortable as I feel sometimes moving forwards anyway, it's just, I can't trust those thoughts. And I think it'd be disappointing to quit again due to those thoughts. I'm not saying it's a wrong to stop or to quit in this case, but those thoughts in my mind are essentially excuses. They're not legit and they're not satisfying reasons to stop. So yeah, when do you stop? That's the question that I'm kind of at. Like, I'm not having fun. I'm not making money. I have a lot of things I don't like about it. I don't know. I want to do other things with that shiny object across the road, the dump truck that I want to drive. Seems so much easier, so much more straightforward. Of course, this is all the stuff that my mind tells me. Some of it might be true. I don't know, but I do know the pattern that I've been facing, and the pattern has been try something, there's difficulty, then my mind comes up with excuses, and usually I end up quitting. So it's hard to say. What I think, what I'm getting though is, and this is just my working theory at the moment, you keep going until you hit a wall. So for example, today I hit a wall with cold email. As part of the online course that I'm doing for the AI business, a part of it is learning cold email. I have a lot of, I guess, I don't know what the word would be, not grudge, but I just don't like being deceptive. The course that I'm following, it essentially teaches you how to deceive people into thinking that you made them a custom personalized email. When I watch this and think about doing it myself, I kind of lock up, like my whole body tenses up. I don't want to do it. That said, there's still that sort of cycle where you could say all the excuses start coming up. My body tenses up. There's an emotion, like an ethical emotion against deceiving people. I don't think that's the place to stop. I think that's a place where you're at a wall. Okay, so I have some boundaries I don't want to cross. I don't want to be deceptive in my marketing. even if it's harmless, because it is harmless to people get cold emails every day and everyone's being deceived all the time. Yeah, it's harmless, but for my it's just not something that I want to do. It's not how I'd want to run business. I want to be honest, and I will take a I guess revenue cut for being honest. But that's not the place to stop. And I'm having a hard time kind of describing what I mean because I'm right there. I'm at that wall. There's no analogy I can really give besides once you get to a wall, the theory that I have is you just stay at the wall and stare at it for as long as it takes for the wall to crack or to melt. Because really, the wall is not the business, it's not cold email in this case, it's myself. There's a wall internally that is stopping me from going forwards. I could, you know, crash through and do things anyway, but that's a long-term recipe for burning yourself out and just being extremely unhappy because I've tried that before. It's not healthy to do that. So I'm hitting this wall. My body, my system, my psyche, my ego, you could even say, is saying, hey, I don't want to do this. The goal then is not to go back and say, okay, I'm just going to stop doing everything. In my mind, it's just, okay, take a step back, look at the wall, get a better picture of what's going on. Why exactly don't I like cold email, for example? Maybe are there other ways I can do cold email which are less deceptive if deception is the reason I don't like it? All these, like, it's more of like take a step back, let the emotions, I guess, process, then look at things from a clearer picture. And then keep doing that as many times as needed. I keep thinking back to games like Elden Ring and Dark Souls where it's the same process but just way smaller and way easier because it's so much smaller. When you go and fight a boss, it's well known certain bosses are extremely frustrating to fight. I remember the second or the DLC for Elden Ring, the final boss I think took me 150 tries or somewhere between 100 and 200 tries. I think 10 hours at least. And I distinctly remember feeling many, many times along the way, maybe I'm not ready for this boss. Maybe I need to level up more. Maybe I'm just not good enough. I remember thinking those things and feeling dismayed, distressed. But for some reason, I kept coming back every time. And eventually I beat him. 2 or 3 days of just fighting this boss constantly, being frustrated. I just beat him, right? Now, wasn't so simple. I had reached certain points where I saw progress. There were certain move sets which at first I had a really hard time with, but then I figured out how to dodge. I watched a video on YouTube helping me learn the boss. Then I realized certain tricks. So there was a sense of positive feedback and improvement. And ultimately, 2 or 3 days, 10 hours is not that much time compared to business. Getting a client, I did get a client already, but since then, nothing. It's been like a month since I met that client. So the feedback time is way longer and there is a risk of losing money along the way. It's a lot more complicated, though I do think it could eventually work like that, but it's also, yeah, it's so much more complicated because I don't know, actually. I have a really hard time determining that. Video games that are hard, I typically can sit down and keep doing it. I think one element, it's fun. There's a fun element. And the AI stuff can be fun too, but really, I don't love the AI so much as I love the result of, wow, this is so much more efficient than it was before. I don't actually love working the AI systems usually. So there are cases which I like using certain technologies. I remember about a month ago, I was testing something out and I was using Postman and I kind of had fun with that. So yeah, I don't really know, but I do think it boils down to getting to a wall, There were many times when I was fighting that boss when I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not playing anymore today. And then I wouldn't play anymore, or I'd come back later. I think it's like that where you hit a wall, you just, okay, like, I don't want to do cold email anymore today. I step back, I let myself process, I do something else. Then I come back to it, whether it's the next day or a couple days later, or even later in the day when I feel more refreshed and more like I have more space. As many times as needed until that wall cracks. And the wall cracking, this is another confusion for me. In a video game, it's simple, I guess. You beat the boss. That's the wall cracking. Or, and I think this is less likely, I think people just give up. But you could also get to the point where you just realize, hey, I don't like doing this. I mean, for sure, there's plenty of things that everyone does or tries to do that are like, hey, I don't really like doing this, and there's no real emotional attachment to that. There's just like a neutral, I tried this, it's not really my thing. That also comes up as an excuse, though. I've noticed, like, one of the excuses coming up is like, hey, I've been trying this for 2 months. I put 2K into it. Honestly, I don't really like it. And I would be fine with that reasoning, but I need to make money. I may have mentioned this in a video a week ago, but first of all, I don't even love the current work that I do in my current job. But also, I'm not going to have that job by mid-August. It's going to be gone. And what's next in line for me is going to school. And that's, a year to 2 year long commitment. So it's either this or that, essentially, or dump truck. I keep going back to the dump truck. Maybe I should just do it. Or maybe I won't like it. Maybe I'll decide to get my commercial driver's license, spend 10K or whatever that's needed, and hate it. This is the fear, I would say. There's just fear of, with another thing with video games is there's no commitment. You could always quit a game and come back to it 6 months later. Jobs are not like that. You need to stick with a job for a certain period of time. A video game, you approach it with the knowledge in mind that you don't have to. You can just stop. So that might be the biggest key that I'm overlooking here, is that work, you can't keep quitting jobs. No one's going to want to hire you, and you're not going to make enough money to make a living. Yeah, I really struggle with this, especially because I don't really see other people with the same struggle. I know it's not rare for people not to like their jobs. In fact, it seems pretty common, especially younger people. It seems like, but I'm in an environment where I'm not constantly talking to people. I'm usually pretty alone. I don't have a strong in-person social support team, social support circle, I was going to say. So it's really hard for me to tell if, yeah, I just don't know. And there are moments when I'm like, oh, this AI stuff is actually pretty cool. So yeah, just my own struggles, my own theories, my own thoughts on what's going on. I I also think getting positive feedback would be a real game changer. If I were, for instance, to get more work and make money, that might change things a lot for me. I've been failing, or not failing, but I've not been getting clients for most of the 2 months. And certainly I've made quite a loss and put in quite a lot of effort to not get much in return so far. Maybe once I start getting returns, if I start getting returns, then that might make me change my mind, right? That's totally possible. It's possible that I change my mind when and if I start making money. I remember the client that I did end up getting, she left me this amazing review, and I remember feeling great. I think I even made a short about it, how great I felt because she left me this amazing review. So maybe that's just how it works, you know? You just got to get results, and then if you feel better generally. Yeah, I think right now I feel really uncomfortable. Like I don't want to keep going. I want to just stop and like I said, try dump trucking. That's the new excuse that's been coming up. Just drive a dump truck, sit and drive a dump truck, and then think all day in my mind, and because that's what I like doing. I just like thinking and processing thoughts. That might actually be a dream job for me, seriously. And then maybe I can make my own dump truck business and just like hire out people driving, and eventually that could be my thing. Maybe when they make autonomous truck driving, I just buy autonomous trucks and that's my investment vehicle. Totally possible, and I think totally, you know, not really that far out left field. I think it'd be hard to justify that to family, but the point is, I don't feel like the journey with AI is closed yet. I think it either needs to come to a close, which could happen if I run out of money for investment purposes. I'm not going to spend all my money on this, but I have a runway for investments. So if I run out of money, that's kind of one step. If school starts and I don't want to do both at the same time, or if something completely unexpected comes at me where it's just like, yeah, I have to do this thing and drop the AI. And then the fourth option is if I just genuinely come to a point where I'm like, okay, like I'm done. But I can't honestly say that I am right now. I just don't feel done yet. I just feel like there's more for me to try to do and more for me to play around with. People are succeeding as far as I can tell doing this stuff. So I'm obviously doing something wrong, or at least getting really unlucky, which means my luck's going to change, or I need to change my strategy. I think it's really important to try those things first and then actually start getting wins. Once I start getting wins and positive feedback, if I'm making money and I still don't like it, then I think, okay, yeah, probably just done. But I'm not making money yet. So anyway, that's been me yapping for 27 minutes. I'm curious what kind of thoughts you guys might have if you have similar situations where you just don't know, if something's for you or something, or something or something or something or something or something. Yeah. So thanks for watching. Peace.